Ever notice how the most powerful people rarely explain themselves? They make decisions, they take action, they move on. While everyone around them demands explanations, they simply continue forward. Meanwhile, you are exhausting yourself trying to make everyone understand. What do they know that you don't? I am about to show you why the need to be understood is destroying your power. Why every explanation you give makes you weaker. Why the most liberating words you'll ever learn are, "I don't need you to understand." This isn't about being cold, it is about being free. Right now, you are probably trapped in the explanation cycle. Someone questions your choice. You explain. They push back. You explain more. They still don't get it. You explain even more. Hours later, you've wasted energy, revealed your reasoning, and they still don't understand. Or worse, they understand and still disagree. Here is the brutal truth. Nobody tells you. Most people who demand explanations aren't seeking understanding. They're seeking control. They want to argue with your reasoning, challenge your logic, change your decision. Your explanation isn't a bridge to understanding. It is a door to manipulation. Machiavelli watched rulers destroy themselves through excessive explanation. He saw how justification invited challenge, how reasoning invited debate, how the need to be understood became the chain that bound powerful men to weaker ones, who demanded explanations they had no right to demand. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why being understood isn't the goal you thought it was. You'll have specific techniques to stop explaining yourself, and you'll experience the power that comes from finally letting go of the need to justify your existence. Are you ready to stop explaining? Drop this affirmation in the comments. I don't need to be understood. Number 1. The illusion of understanding. Here is the first truth that will set you free. True understanding between people is far rarer than you think. Most of what passes for understanding is actually agreement. When people say they understand you, they usually mean they agree with you. When they don't agree, suddenly they don't understand. This means the understanding you are chasing is often impossible. You can explain perfectly, they can comprehend completely, and they still won't understand because understanding, in their usage, requires agreement. You are chasing something that depends on their choice, not your explanation. Think about times you've explained yourself thoroughly. Did their understanding follow the quality of your explanation? Or did it follow whether your explanation led to conclusions they already wanted? Usually the latter. Your explanation quality didn't determine their understanding. Their predisposition did. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand." People judge by appearance, not by careful reasoning. Your elaborate explanation is processed through their existing filters. What survives those filters is what they understand. Your explanation often doesn't change the filters. Here is the liberation. If understanding is largely determined by their predisposition rather than your explanation, then your explanation isn't the variable that matters. You can explain perfectly or not at all, and their understanding will be roughly the same. So why waste the energy? The illusion of understanding keeps you trapped. You keep thinking the right explanation will finally make them get it. But understanding isn't a puzzle solved by explanation. It is a choice made by the listener, and that choice is largely independent of what you say. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Understanding is their choice, not my job. Here is proof this is true. Think about someone who fundamentally disagrees with your worldview. Have you ever explained your position so well that they completely changed their mind? Almost never. And they've likely never explained their position well enough to change yours. Understanding follows predisposition, not explanation quality. This doesn't mean communication is useless. It means that the goal of communication should be information transfer, not mind changing. Share what you choose to share. Don't expect it to create understanding. If it does, bonus. If it doesn't, That was always the likely outcome. The energy you've spent chasing the illusion of understanding could have built empires. That energy is recoverable when you stop chasing mirages. Let them not understand. Let them disagree. Your life continues regardless of their comprehension. Number 2. Explanation as power leak. Here is the second truth. Every explanation you give leaks power. Not metaphorically. Actually, when you explain yourself, you reveal your reasoning, which can be attacked. You show your priorities, which can be exploited. You demonstrate your need for approval, which can be manipulated. Think of explanation as opening your strategy document to opponents. Here is why I am doing this. Here is what I am prioritizing. Here is what matters to me. Here is the logic I am using. Any competent opponent uses this information against you. You've armed them with your own reasoning. The powerful stay powerful partly through mystery. When others don't know your reasoning, they can't attack it. When they don't know your priorities, they can't exploit them. When they don't know your logic, they can't argue against it. Your unexplained actions are untouchable. Machiavelli observed that rulers who explained themselves invited challenges that silent rulers avoided. The explanation opened debate. The debate invited dissent. The dissent weakened authority. The silence would have prevented all of it. Here is the practical reality. In any competitive or political situation, explanation is intelligence delivered to opponents. In negotiations, it reveals your position. In conflicts, it exposes your vulnerabilities. In relationships with manipulators, it provides ammunition. Stop arming people against yourself. Robert Greene warned, always say less than necessary. Explanation is saying more than necessary by definition. You could simply act. You chose to justify every word of justification as a word you didn't need to say. And unnecessary words are always power leaks. The power you've been losing to explanation is recoverable. Stop explaining. Watch how much stronger you feel when your actions stand alone. Watch how differently people treat you when they can't map your reasoning. Watch how your mystery becomes your armor. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I don't reveal my reasoning. Here is a thought experiment. Imagine you made a decision and explained nothing, ever, to anyone. How would that change how people treat you? How would it change how they approach you? How would it change the power dynamic? The answer reveals how much power you are currently leaking. Some explanations are genuinely useful. Explaining to a trusted ally whose input you want. Explaining to someone who needs to coordinate with you. Explaining to someone who has legitimate authority over the decision. But these are rare compared to the explanations you give from habit or need. The powerful person asks before explaining, does this person have a right to an explanation? Will this explanation serve me? If both answers aren't yes, the explanation doesn't happen. This simple filter eliminates most power, leaking justifications. Number 3. The approval trap disguised as understanding. Here is the third truth. Your need to be understood is usually your need for approval in disguise. You don't actually need them to understand. You need them to approve. You are using understanding as a more acceptable word for the approval you are chasing. Test this yourself. Imagine someone fully understands your decision, but still disapproves. Are you satisfied? Usually not. You wanted the understanding to lead to approval. The understanding alone isn't enough. This proves you were seeking approval all along. This matters because approval seeking is a known vulnerability. We've discussed it in previous videos. The need for approval gives others control over you. When you disguise this need as wanting to be understood, you are just hiding the vulnerability from yourself, not from those who would exploit it. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Translated to this context, it is better to be respected than understood. Understanding without respect gives you nothing. Respect without understanding gives you power. Chase the thing that matters. Here is the liberation. When you admit that you want approval rather than understanding, you can address the real issue. You can work on not needing approval. You can recognize when you are explaining to seek validation. You can stop the disguised behavior and deal with the real vulnerability. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, ask what you really want, understanding or approval. If it is approval, recognize it. Then remember that explaining rarely produces approval anyway. It just reveals your need for it, which actually reduces respect and therefore approval. The cycle defeats itself. Stop chasing approval disguised as understanding. Neither is necessary for you to live your life, make your decisions, and pursue your goals. Both are optional validations from external sources. Your internal validation is the only one that matters. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I don't need their approval or understanding. Here is a clarifying exercise. Before your next explanation, pause and ask yourself honestly, am I seeking understanding or approval? The honest answer will usually be approval. Then ask, do I actually need this approval? The honest answer will usually be no. Both answers free you from explaining. The approval disguised as understanding trap is especially powerful in close relationships. You explain to partners, to family, to close friends, telling yourself you want them to understand, but you want them to approve. Recognize this, and you can either ask directly for the approval or release the need entirely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much time he gains who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only at what he himself is doing." The time spent explaining to gain others' understanding and approval is time lost from your own life. Reclaim it. Number 4. The dignity of the unexplained life. Here is the fourth truth. There is profound dignity in living without explanation. The person who doesn't justify their existence, their choices, their path, projects a completeness that explanatory people never achieve. Think about the people you most respect. Do they explain themselves constantly? Do they justify every decision? Do they seek understanding for every choice? Almost certainly not. Their unexplained life is part of what makes them respectable. They don't seem to need your understanding, and that self-sufficiency commands respect. Marcus Aurelius lived this. Despite being emperor, he didn't explain himself to subordinates. His meditations are private reflections, not public justifications. He understood that explanation diminishes rather than enhances authority. The unexplained emperor is more powerful than the justified one. Here is what the dignity of the unexplained life looks like. Practically, you make decisions and act on them. When questioned, you might share information, but you don't justify. When challenged, you might listen, but you don't defend. Your actions speak. Explanations are unnecessary. This doesn't mean you never communicate. You can share your thinking with those who have a right to it and will use it well. But sharing with chosen allies is different from explaining to anyone who demands it. Selective communication respects yourself. Universal explanation degrades yourself. Robert Greene noted, "Reputation is the cornerstone of power." Your reputation as someone who doesn't explain becomes part of your power. People learn that demanding explanations from you is futile. They stop demanding, they start accepting. Your behavior has trained them, and that training gives you freedom. The dignity of the unexplained life isn't about being secretive or cold. It is about knowing that your existence doesn't require justification, that your choices don't need approval, that your path doesn't need external validation. This knowing is dignity. This knowing is power. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My life needs no explanation. Here is what the unexplained life looks like in practice. Someone asks why you made a choice. You smile. You might say, "It is what I decided," or nothing at all. You feel the old pull to explain. You don't, the moment passes. You've preserved your energy and your mystery victory. The discomfort of not explaining passes quickly. The regret of unnecessary explanation lasts longer. After explaining, You often wish you hadn't. You revealed too much. You argued unnecessarily. You spent energy that wasn't required. Non-explanation prevents all of this regret. Nietzsche wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. The tribe demands explanation. The tribe wants you to justify yourself. Your resistance to this demand is your assertion of individual sovereignty against collective pressure." Number 5. Practical techniques for not explaining. Here is the fifth part. Specific techniques to stop explaining yourself. Knowing why to stop isn't enough. You need to know how to stop. Your explanation habit is deeply ingrained. Breaking it requires specific tools. Technique 1. The statement repeat. When someone pushes for explanation after you've stated your decision, simply repeat the decision. Why are you doing that? I've decided to do this. But why? I've decided to do this. No new information, just repetition. Eventually they stop asking because they realize pushing gets nothing. Technique 2. The redirect. When asked to explain, redirect to the future instead of justifying the past. Why did you decide that? Let me tell you what happens next. But why? Here is the plan going forward. The past decision is done, discussing the future is more useful, and it avoids the justification trap. Technique 3. The comfortable silence. When asked to explain, simply don't respond immediately. Let silence sit. Many explanation demands dissolve in silence because the demander realizes you are not going to comply. The silence communicates more than words could. Technique 4. The boundary statement. I don't explain my decisions. Said once, said clearly, said without apology. This establishes the norm that you don't justify yourself. People learn what you'll and won't do. This teaches them you won't explain. Technique 5. The acknowledgement without compliance. I understand you want to know why. I am not going to explain. This acknowledges their request without granting it. It shows you heard them but chose not to comply. It is respectful while maintaining your boundary. Technique 6. The limited disclosure. Sometimes you want to share something without opening the full justification door. Share one piece of information and stop. One factor was timing. Period. They may push for more. Don't give more. You've shared what you chose to share. These techniques require practice. You'll feel the pull to explain. You'll feel the discomfort of not justifying. This discomfort is the old pattern trying to reassert itself. Sit with the discomfort, it passes, and on the other side is the power of the unexplained life. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I have techniques to stay silent. Here is a practice schedule. Week 1. Use the statement repeat with low-stakes requests for explanation. Week 2. Add the redirect technique. Week 3. Practice comfortable silence. Week 4. Establish boundary statements. By month's end, you'll have 4 tools working together. The most powerful technique varies by situation. Aggressive demands might need the boundary statement. Curious questions might need the redirect. Persistent pushing might need the statement repeat. Manipulative requests might need comfortable silence. Match technique to situation. Expect resistance when you start. People who benefited from your explanations will push harder when explanations stop coming. This is them realizing they've lost access to your reasoning. Their increased pressure is a sign the technique is working, not a sign to give in. Track your successes. Each time you successfully don't explain when you would have before. Note it. These small victories compound into transformation. Your confidence in non-explanation grows with each repetition. Soon it becomes your default rather than your effort. Here is what happens when you stop explaining yourself. When you accept that understanding is often impossible and unnecessary. When you stop leaking power through justification. When you address the approval need directly. When you embrace the dignity of the unexplained life. When you master the techniques of non-explanation. First, you recover enormous energy. The mental and emotional energy spent on explanation becomes available for actually living. You'll be shocked how much you are spending on justification once you stop. Second, people respect you more. Counterintuitively, the less you explain, the more respect you command. People sense self-sufficiency. They respect those who don't need external validation. Your unexplained existence becomes admirable. Third, manipulators lose their grip. Without explanations to attack, without reasoning to argue, without priorities to exploit, manipulators have nothing to work with. Your mystery becomes your armor. They move on to easier targets. Fourth, your decisions become cleaner. When you are not anticipating how to explain decisions, you make them more clearly. You focus on what is right, not what is justifiable. The quality of your choices improves. Fifth, you discover who actually respects you. Some people will withdraw when you stop explaining. Good. They needed your justification more than they valued you. The people who remain are the ones who respect you with or without explanation. 6. Your self-respect increases. When you are not constantly justifying yourself, you start feeling like someone who doesn't need justification. Your self-image shifts from someone who must prove themselves to someone who simply is. This shift is profound. 7th, you become harder to manipulate. Manipulators need access to your reasoning to attack it. They need to see your priorities to exploit them. They need to know your vulnerabilities to target them. Your silence denies them all of this. You become a fortress. The transformation isn't instant, but it is inevitable if you persist. Each day of less explanation builds on the last. Each boundary held makes the next easier to hold. The compound effect creates someone who simply doesn't explain. That person is waiting for you to become them. If you've made it this far, you understand something that most people never will. That explanation is often weakness disguised as communication. That justification is often submission disguised as sharing. That the need to be understood is often the need to be approved. Most people will keep explaining themselves forever. Keep justifying their choices. Keep seeking understanding that is really approval. Keep leaking power through unnecessary words. But not you, not anymore. The difference between you and them is one simple choice. The choice to stop explaining. They won't make that choice because it feels uncomfortable, because it violates social training, because they fear the disapproval that might follow. But you'll make it because you understand the cost of not making it. Every great leader learned this lesson. Every person of true power practices it. Every free individual lives it. You are joining a rare group of people who understand that power doesn't explain itself. Power simply acts and lets the actions speak. If this video freed you from the need to explain yourself, smash that like button. If you know someone exhausting themselves with justification, share this with them. And if you want more content that liberates you from unnecessary burdens, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now drop this final affirmation in the comments. I owe no explanations. Remember, in a world where everyone explains themselves to everyone, the one who explains nothing commands everything. Be that person. Stop explaining. Stop justifying. Stop seeking understanding. Start living the unexplained life, because you never owed anyone an explanation. Not for your choices, not for your path, not for your existence. That debt was imaginary. The payments were real, but the debt wasn't. Stop paying imaginary debts. Keep the power that was always yours. And watch how everything changes when you finally stop explaining yourself to a world that has no right to ask. Here is the final truth. The world will keep asking for explanations. That won't change. But your response to those requests can change today, starting now, with the very next request for justification you receive. Meet it with silence. Meet it with repetition. Meet it with boundary. Meet it with dignity. The people who truly belong in your life will adapt to your non-explanation. They'll learn that you don't justify yourself. They'll respect it. They might even admire it. The ones who can't adapt weren't meant to be close to you. Their departure is a gift, not a loss. Your unexplained life starts now, not tomorrow, not when circumstances change. Now, the next time someone asks why, remember everything you've learned. Understanding is their choice, not your job. Explanation leaks power. Approval disguises itself as understanding. Dignity requires no justification. Techniques exist to maintain silence. Freedom awaits on the other side. Go live unexplained. Go live unjustified. Go live in the dignity of someone who owes nothing to no one. That is where power lives. That is where freedom lives. That is where you were always meant to live. Starting this very moment, let your actions be your only explanation. Let your results be your only justification. Let your life be your only defense. Let your existence be its own reasoning. Nothing else is required. Nothing else was ever required. You just didn't know it until now. Now you know. Now go live it. The unexplained life is the free life. Claim it.